Okay, welcome back to my channel, Made Between the Pages. My name is Taylor, and today we're going to be doing my mid-year book Freakout tag. I was tagged to do this by Katie over at Brightness Katie Reads. I will link her channel down below. Please go check her out if you don't know her already. She's a wonderful booktuber. And I've seen this tag going around BookTube before, but like in previous years when I was just watching, not making content, and I really always enjoyed watching it, so I'm really excited to finally make my own this year. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question is the best book you've read so far in 2020. Now this one is really hard, I'm sure, as all book lovers know, to choose a favorite book. I really struggled with this. But in the end, I picked the book that I've been thinking about the most ever since I read it. The book that has stayed in my head the most. And that's going to be A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I've talked about him on my channel before, this author on my channel before, but this book is a contemporary book, which might be really shocking if you know me, because I read mostly fantasy, and to have my favorite book of the year so far be a non-fantasy book is quite rare. But this book really just touched my soul. It's about an old man who's very grumpy, he's kind of against the world, and you start off being quite annoyed by him, like most of the world probably is. But throughout the book, you get to see who he really is at his core, and it's phenomenal. It's heartbreaking and beautiful, and if you haven't read it, please read this book. Number 2, the best sequel you've read so far in 2020. So for this, I'm kind of going to cheat and give multiple answers. The first is going to be a set, so that's The Heart of Betrayal and The Beauty of Darkness. And these are the second and third book in the Remnant Chronicles, which is a trilogy that I read earlier in the year. And if you were around near the beginning of my channel, I was like raving about these books because I read them thinking it would be something easy, something quick, because they're kind of older YA fantasy, and I fell in love with them. I'm in love with that series. So the second and third book were both 5 stars for me, so those were definitely some of the best sequels that I read. And the next one is going to be a Brandon Sanderson book, The Bands of Mourning. This is the last book in the Second Era Mistborn trilogy. And I love this book. I tabbed the crap out of it. Are we surprised? No, we're not. And I just loved the way that this finished the trilogy. I love the characters in this series. I love the expansion on Allomancy and the magic systems, and it was just phenomenal. It was 5 stars for me. I love this book. Question number 3, a new release that you haven't read yet but want to. And this one is going to be My Dark Vanessa. I can't remember who it's by at the moment. But this is supposed to be a very heavy-hitting contemporary? I think it's fiction, yeah. About a girl who is in a relationship with her teacher when she is young, and she is not aware of the power imbalance or how inappropriate the relationship was until she's older, and I believe that this book is reflecting back on that. And if you know me, you know that when I read contemporary, I like to read hard-hitting contemporary, and this one really has piqued my interest. It was a new release this year. I don't remember what month it came out, but I really do want to get to this eventually this year. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This should shock no one, but Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson, the 4th book in the Stormlight Archives series. I love Brandon Sanderson, and I'm so hyped for this book. I cannot wait. I'm participating in the Storm Along 2020, which I can leave a link to down below if you want to read the Stormlight Archive books for the first time or reread them with a group of people. There's something called the Storm Along, where we are reading one Stormlight Archive book every 2 months in preparation for the release of Rhythm of War. So I highly recommend you join us if you want to, but I haven't started my reread yet, but I hope to pick it up soon. Number 5, biggest disappointment. Now for this one, I'm actually going to go with a book that you've never seen me mention on my channel before, I don't think, because I read this before I started my channel. But in January of this year, I read Silence by Shusaku Endo. And this is a book about, I believe it's a historical fiction, and it's considered a modern classic. And it's about the life of a priest back in feudal era Japan, when it was very not safe for Christians, or especially priests, and they were extremely persecuted. So you can see that, I mean, the cover's gorgeous, and this has really pulled me in, to be honest, but I was really intrigued because I live in Japan, and I really wanted to learn a bit more about Japanese history through the lens of its history with other countries, because it's typically a very closed-off country, and they have a lot of internal history, but external history is something I don't know much about, like their interactions with the external world. So I was really intrigued by this. I did tab it, but unfortunately, a lot of these tabs are not happy tabs. I really thought I was going to enjoy this, but this writing is so dry. It was like reading a history textbook. And I was so shocked because this Shusaku Endo is a very well-known author, a Japanese author. And I know people who really like his books. So I went into it thinking, oh, it's going to be beautiful prose. But I had to struggle not to fall asleep when I was reading this. So I ended up giving it, I think it was 2 stars? I might have given, did I give this 1 star? I think I gave this 1 star. Yeah, it was just, I went in with high expectations, and it wasn't it for me. So, yeah. Number 6, biggest surprise. So this one is actually going to be a really recent read. For my May wrap-up and Asian Readathon wrap-up, I mentioned this book, and that is Funny in Farsi. I loved this book. I picked this book up for the Asian Readathon prompt that said you should read a book recommended by an Asian friend or an Asian booktuber. So I picked up this book based on a booktuber named Poraline. I'll link her down below. But I got my recommendation from her. And this is about a woman who is from Iran, and she moves to America multiple times in her life at different points during America's relationship with the Middle East. And this book was just hilarious. I loved it. It's called Funny in Farsi for a reason. I laughed out loud, I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I expected it to kind of be a so-so read because I didn't go into it expecting to love it so much. So if you have never heard of this book, or if you've never read this book, please do it. It is wonderful. Number 7, favorite new author, debut or new to you. So for this one, I'm going to choose N.K. Jemisin. I have had her Broken Earth trilogy on my list, my TBR, I mean, for so long, and I finally read it. I finished it this week, actually. And I'm not going to get too into my review of the book itself, because that'll come in my wrap-up, but I ended up really enjoying it, and I'm really intrigued to read the rest of N.K. Jemisin's work. I highly expected to enjoy it and highly expected to want to read most of her works, and I'm really excited to say that that expectation came through. So I would definitely put her pretty high up there on the authors that I enjoy, and I can't wait to read the rest of her works. Leave a comment down below if you have a recommendation for what I should go for by N.K. Jemisin after the Broken Earth trilogy. I'd love to hear what you think. Number 8 is newest fictional crush. So for this one, I'm going to go with Danica Fendrier, I think is how you say her last name, from Crescent City, or House of Earth and Blood. She is a character that you don't see in the flesh, like physically, for much of this book at all, but her character is a huge presence in the series, and it's a catalyst for almost everything that happens. So you really do get to know her, even through flashbacks and other literary devices. And I love her so much. Danica is just... her fierceness, her loyalty, and the fact that she doesn't give two fucks what other people think is just amazing. I would love to date Danica. The next question is your newest favorite character. Now this character is actually going to be from a book I read quite a while ago, maybe I think in February, but this character has stuck with me and I love her so much, and that's going to be Zamira Drakasha from Red Seas Under Red Skies by Scott Lynch. This is the second book in the Gentleman Bastards series. I really love this series. I haven't talked about it recently, but it's like top 5 series for me. And this character, Zamira, is a pirate, but she's a mother of 2, I believe. She has 2 kids, and she's in her 40s, I believe, and she's just such a badass. And it's pretty rare to see a woman in her 40s in fantasy that has kids that's kicking ass. Another author I've discovered who does that really well is N.K. Jemisin. But this was one of the first times that I was exposed to a character like this, and I just love her so much. Scott Lynch actually has a foreword that's in this book, at least in this version of the book, where he addresses the criticisms that Zamira is a, what's the word I'm looking for? Wish fulfillment. That Zamira is a wish fulfillment character. And he says, yeah, she is. And why should 40-year-old women who are mothers not have a wish fulfillment character? Almost every other type of person has a wish fulfillment character in fantasy, especially men. So why can't I create a wish fulfillment character for another demographic of people? And that made me respect Scott Lynch so much more, and really made me love this character. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. For this one, I'm going to also say A Man Called Ove. Since I talked about this in the first question, I won't talk about it much, but just as I mentioned before, it's beautiful, it will touch your heart, and it will make you want to be more compassionate towards other people in your life. So please, I'll say for the second time in this video, read this book if you haven't. Number 11 is a book that made you happy. And for this one, I'm going to say Tomo-chan wa Ononoko. And this is a manga that I've been reading on my channel. If you've been around, you've heard me mention it. And this is a romantic comedy, kind of slice of life style manga, where Tomo-chan, this girl here, confesses her love for her childhood best friend, Jun, and he friend-zones her right away. He's like, oh, I love you too. High five, best friend. And that's kind of how the story starts. And it's just, she's a big tomboy, and they both do martial arts together. So there's lots of this type of humor. And it's like kind of a ragtag group of friends that ends up forming around these two. And it's just joyful. It's just happy. And I'm reading it to practice my Japanese, but I ended up really enjoying the story. So I haven't finished it yet, and I'm currently reading the second volume here, but these books definitely make me really happy. Question number 12 is the most beautiful book you've received or been gifted so far this year, and this is 100% Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. In my recent wrap-up, I talked about this book, and I also included a clip of me receiving it. This was one of my most hyped books of the year. I love this series. The first one is Founderside here behind me, and the cover is just to die for. I mean, don't mind my little paw prints there. but matte black with that blue, yes. They're just...
Sorry. It's beautiful. They're so beautiful. I love them.
I mean, look at these together. They're just, and the spines together. Even if I hated this second one, I would buy the third one to have the complete set. Not gonna lie. So yeah, this is definitely the most beautiful one that I have bought this year. Okay, so the last one is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, all of us book lovers know that this is an impossible question because all of them. But I am going to name a couple focusing mainly on like fantasy series I want to start or finish, because if I don't kind of box myself in, the answer to this question is going to be forever long. So based on that, the first one I'm going to say is Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. Talked about this on my channel a million times. This book and the 5th season were the two books that I really wanted to get to within this month. Might not be able to get to Rage of Dragons within this month, but I will 100% be getting to it this year. I want to read that so bad. The next one is actually Sophia's fault over on Fantasy Book Addict. She got me to read Monstrous, and I had seen this kind of around BookTube here and there, but I hadn't really planned on picking it up myself. But Sophia ranted is not the word, raved about this and said it was just phenomenal. So, I mean, the artwork is gorgeous. Let me find a picture that doesn't give anything away. Here's a page. It's just gorgeously drawn. So again, I'm not going to get into the details because I'm going to be talking about this in my wrap-up, but suffice it to say that I loved this enough that I did order all of the other volumes that are out now, so 2, 3, and 4. And these are not cheap, so that means I definitely liked it. So I will definitely be finishing this series within the next month or two, but 100% within the year. The next series is a manga series called Hanazakari no Kimitachi, and this is another like light-hearted kind of slice of life series about a girl who goes undercover in a boys' school and kind of her misadventures and friend groups along the way. And I would love to read this entire series. I read it in English when I was in high school, I think, and then I got the collector's edition in Japanese. I'm not sure if I'll be able to finish the entire series this year because it's quite long. Actually, I have them all. Let's see. It's 12 volumes long, and they're quite thick and all in Japanese, so this might be a lofty goal for myself, but I would really like to reread this series this year if I can. Okay, I have 2 more. The next one is the Book of the Ancestors series. If you'll know on my channel, it's kind of a running gag. I got the entire Book of the Ancestors series, but the last one to come in was the first book. So I have not been able to start it yet, but I fully believe I'm going to love it, and I think I'm going to want to blow through it as soon as I start. So I have Red Sister, Gray Sister, and Holy Sister. So that's the original trilogy that I'd like to get to this year, as well as the book that just came out in his spin-off series, The Girl and the Stars. This has gotten amazing reviews, so I really want to get to this entire trilogy and then this book this year. And finally, last but certainly not least, is The Priory of the Orange Tree. I bought this book right when it first came out because, I mean, honestly, it was a cover buy, and then I heard it was about dragons and it was a sapphic romance, and I was like, take my money. So I bought it really quickly, and I did start reading it. You can see a couple tabs, but I mentioned earlier on my channel that I was reading this, but I wasn't in the mood for like a slow epic fantasy, and I didn't want my opinion of this book to suffer because of the reading mood that I was in, so I didn't want to force it. But from what I had read in the beginning, I think I'm going to love this, and I really want to read it this year. That concludes my mid-year book Freakout tag. I tried to make it not too long. If you are watching this video, I tag you to make it as well. The questions will be in the description down below, and I'll be searching this tag over the next couple weeks, so I'm hoping to find a bunch of new people to follow. Thank you for watching, and for now, I'm going to head out. Jenny!